Good morning, everybody. My guest is late because he's black, so I want people to be aware of that. He's not here yet, so and if he doesn't show, that's fine too. I have a plan for everything, so we're good either way. We'll still be able to have the conversation, but right now he's late, so don't blame me. I did my part. Okay, I did my part, and so I'm waiting for the other part to be done. Hi, Kat, everybody. Anyway, so here is I'm going to lay some ground rules for not rules, but a groundwork for the conversation today, um, and to kind of frame up what the conversation would have been if he doesn't make it, or and would be if he does make it. Um, Society today has kept manhood in a location that is detrimental to God's design for man. And in doing that, they have started at a very young age with boys, making them unsure about their role, confusing them about their role, making them feel less for being male, um, even to the point of making them not want to be male because they think it's toxic. The dangerous effects of that doesn't just come from the side of following God; it comes also at the expense of the child's mental wellness. Um, I can tell you, having been through the ringer when it comes to confusion about what men are supposed to be, not having my father around and seeing multiple actual toxic males where they are very abusive. But when I look at them, I see that they had been through something that kind of makes that a chain reaction. They themselves were confused about what a man is, and they picked extremes. This is what happens. A man will pick the extreme female, overly emotional, and they'll pick the extreme over protection to the point where they're angry all the time and they think that's supposed to be a man. A man will be able to decipher both sides and stay very level headed, clean headed, just straightforward. Now, not saying that a man cannot swing to the pendulum of being a very, very violent, because if you're not capable of extreme violence, you're not very protective. I want people to understand that. But living in that violent environment does not make you a man. It makes you weak because you don't know how to leave that area. And that's where manhood actually begins, the ability to go back and forth between the two and live. Um, so we're going to have that discussion about what the effects are on the man's psyche from young to men growing up, and then eventually when a man actually encounters God and see what their life is like. And our black guest, who is always late, finally made it, and he's backstage, and his face is all up in the camera, thinking everybody want to see him and how cute he is and all this nonsense. So we're gonna have a discussion about that. Uh, Welcome to Mr. Freddie. Hey, any way you could slip that camera sideways?
Yeah, hold on. Let me see if I can do that for you.
Let's see how much computer skills this black man has. Because we don't.
I'm not even on my computer, but I
Yeah.
got you.
I had a white person come set mine up, so I couldn't do it. There we go.
I
All
got you.
right, all right. How's your morning going or went?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Man, I don't like getting old. I really hate it. Uh,
I hear that.
I'm trying to stay fit, but you know, some things ain't fitting.
I wholeheartedly agree with that.
The fit ain't fitting, man. Sometimes the fit ain't fitting. So we are going to have a grandiose discussion about not just male trauma, but being a male in today's society, because it's I don't well, let me not say it's hard. It's frowned upon to be an actual male, a man in today's society is frowned upon. And hey, look, I'm training, cat. Trust me, I'm still training. I'm training through the pain, but man, it's straining. Um, I gotta update my channel. I gotta put some new stuff on it, but it's I'm taking a little hiatus from doing that until I know some stuff, and then I know some stuff, I'll be okay. Um, so you're real close up. Can you back up? And now you're muted. I told you black people don't know how to operate computers. Say something. Let me see if I can hear you. Okay, now say something.
Yeah, I have myself muted from the
Oh,
microphone.
okay, good. All right, good. All right, so let's kick this off. Are you a man or a male?
Well, the last time I checked, I am a man and a male.
Oh, you're both. Okay. Um, what makes you a man? See, I'm going to put you on
Well,
the
to be
spot, by the
completely
way.
honest, what makes me a man is me doing what is necessary to take care of myself, to take care of those that are around me, to raise my children to be better than what I was before. I mean, there's a number of things that make me a man. Me putting away what I used to do
Mm-hmm.
so I can do what I need to do to better my future. You know, being less liberal and more conservative, and I don't mean politically. I mean, I used to get loose in the streets. Now I don't get loose in the streets no more.
Did you ever have you encountered God, or is he just a that's for other people?
Say that one more time.
Have you encountered God, or is that for other people?
Oh yes, a
Okay,
few times.
okay. So, would you consider yourself a follower of God? Is the real question.
100%.
Okay.
Yes.
So, do you consider manhood from him or from humans?
What it is to be a man and what it is to be a woman come from him. He set the standard, and what it is to be a man is a standard. You got to. Anybody can say they're a man, but if they're not meeting that standard, then they're not really a man.
They're just male. Now, we had a pretty robust discussion the other day now about um, that whole concept of manhood, and not just that, but how we operate when it comes to circles of friends and how we deal with what people would consider trauma. Um, and we're not trying to get into your books or anything like that in terms of your history. However, whatever you feel to divulge, you can divulge. Um, in your experience in all 30 plus years of your living, hey, I got to put you on the spot with your youth. Um, do you see society being the number one killer of manhood, or is there still hope?
Well, Western society most certainly, because Western society espouses to this progressive ideology that I'll say it like this. Aleister Crowley says, "Do what thou wilt," and we know Aleister Crowley was not a good man,
Hmm.
but we espouse to that ideology in the United States and Canada and parts of Mexico. We espouse that mindset to do whatever we want to do, and at the end of the day, what we want to do pleases us, regardless of how someone else feels. So it really is a downfall of what, because there's no structure to that.
Now, when you say a structure, um, do you mean someone else being the architect, or do you mean um, that there is no hope for that to have any kind of assistance to make you more of a man?
Well, I think it's more so we had a framework set for us, guidelines set for us to follow, and we quit following them
Hmm.
here. And because we quit following them here, it's kind of like wherever the ball lands, that's where we can go.
Hmm. Question: why do men think sleeping around is manly? Go ahead, you first.
Um, because again, we have strayed away from that structure, from that standard, from that metric that we are supposed to measure ourselves against. We've stepped away from that, and we've been taught and repeatedly grilled with sow your oats while you're young. Go figure out everything you need to do, and then you get ignorant people that are allowed to have a voice speaking, and those ignorant people promote this ideology, whether it's in music, whether it's in fashion, whether it's in social media, wherever sphere they can get in, they promote that ignorance. It's sleeping around is what boys do, because that's what I used to do when I was a boy. I don't do that anymore, not because of STDs or children. It's because it's dumb. It's really dumb.
uh Now I know that has been a thing for forever, man. That's always been a worldly mantra for men is that even when you look back at the song, Papa was a Rolling Stone, right? Um, that there seems to be this, and the crazy part is that society built it. It's not a man that put it out there, but society has placed on, and even looking at movies, that the more affiliations and interactions you have with myriads of women, it makes you more of a um, how would I say a trophy in society's eyes. Um, and I think the real trophies are not readily available. It's like I look at this like a race. Um, to get the kind of medals that Usain Bolt got, you have to be at Usain Bolt's level. The rest of the people get medals too, but they're not nearly as valuable as his. I think society values second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh place more than they do first place, and they consider first place people cheaters because they are so rare and so they work so hard to get what they're getting. And you are definitely more of the not you but men. Real men are actually the gold standard. Society does not look at it that way, unfortunately, and we end up having this dichotomy of virtues where you have men in third and fourth places are seen as though they're in first place, and the first place man is looked upon as though that, oh, you think you're better than everyone else. But the fact is, yes, I am. I, and it's okay to say that, because when you measure me against trash, of course I'm better than that. I'm not going to lie about myself. Yeah, um, I think we've gone the opposite though. We glorify trash and we vilify gold, and so we have this problem now. How do I tell my sons um, to be gold when they're going to be vilified for being gold? Do you have boys, or do you have just a what do you have for kids?
I have one boy and two girls.
Which one do you like more? See, I can answer honestly. I like
And
girls better.
I know I laugh because I agree with you. Most people say I don't have a favorite. I love my kids all the same, but I prefer my youngest daughter because she's most like me.
Hmm.
Um, my son is he takes more and leans more to his mom, and that was in part to my fault because I when my early years in being married, I spent a lot of time working. I was working 4 to 5 jobs. I'd wake up before they were up and got home when they were asleep for at least the first 4 years of their life, both my
Hmm.
oldest lives. So, but I prefer my youngest because I she's most like me.
She's more like you. You see, I just like my daughter because she's the easiest. Boys, I have four of them, and boys, I'm sorry, people. I might be a male and a man, but dang, wow! Look. I think the hardest thing to raise as a man is boys, and I'll tell you why. It's not because my kids are horrible. It's because by nature, boys want to be rebellious, like right off the top. They just and look, part of it is okay because we need that as men in order to kind of foster that ability to tell people no. You got to have that far hand and forth. Like, yeah, okay. But we're also the most stubborn sometimes. Like oh my god, maybe I just have a different daughter because she's not everything that they told me I'd go through with my daughter. I never went through. She has never, ever been the kind of little girl that most people tell me she'd end up being. But my boys turned out to be everything people told me boys would be. I'm sorry, but man, now they're
I
better
think
now. But
what I think it is mostly that I've come to find with boys is they they will test a man on being a man because they're trying to figure out how to
how
be a
to
man
be a man?
themselves because
Mhm.
they're learning. Overall, though, um, you're right. I'd rather deal with girls. My little girls are my heart and my world, and I would, kill for my son, but he needs to be like me, and I'm trying to show him how he needs to be. And as far as my girls, I'm showing them what they should want in a man, which is a lot easier than to show my boy how to be a man.
Yes. Okay. I'm glad you said that because I'll give people an example. And like you, I worked a lot when the boys were younger. 16-hour days, 17-hour days, leave at the crack of dawn. And occasionally I might have a day where I can walk them to school, but majority of the time I'd leave before they were up and back just when before they're going to bed. So there was not much time. However, they would witness me working that long, coming home and still helping with the house. Never copied any of that. But at any point in the weekend that I sat down to play my video game, just to chill on the weekend, they would come and tell me, but you get to sit down and do. I'm like, but hold on, hold on. Y'all see me all week doing something in the house and y'all ain't gonna go do what I did, but you complain about doing the housework, you complain about the yard. I'm here, I work all week and I still do that stuff, and you don't copy that, but you copy the come on, man. And so that's the kind of I had to break them of that mindset that everything should be easy as a male when you should actually be looking for the most um, the least trodden path in life. One, it builds character, and two, it keeps you from being weak. Um, but it was not easy because that's the thing they copied. They copied the most simplistic living. But then I look back at how I was, and in my head I was rebellious. But I did the things mom asked me to because I was in fear of getting my butt behind whooped. But I still did it. So my question then becomes this: since you have a boy, and you say that he is more of the ilk that you're trying to pull him away from of the femininity side, what techniques or plan do you have to do just that outside of just hanging and spending time?
Well, one technique I employ a lot, which his mother hates, but I don't care, is I force him to be independent. He will come to me for help with something, and I'm like, "Did you try to figure it out?" And as a parent, they're going to always say, "Yeah, I
Yeah.
tried." Eh, No, you didn't. Go figure it out. And I won't help him. And it seems harsh and cruel. And I don't care if he comes back to me crying. I'm not going to help him. Now, when it comes to schoolwork, that's different. But I'm talking about like figuring out a puzzle or putting something together, building something, like knowing why that works. Because I know my father did that to me, so I re-employ that behavior because it made me, one, independent, and two, it made me figure out how things worked. But the most important thing is it pushed me to want to do for myself so I can learn the process of things, and I can take that what I learned and apply it to everything that I do. And it's not just a, oh, let me go get help and not really learn what the hardship of going through something is. So it's so many facets that kids are, my all three of my kids, but mainly my son, have to learn, is because I don't help on things unless they've exhausted every avenue. And I think that aside from teaching them about God, is the most important lesson my son can learn, is how to be efficiently independent, not just independent, but efficiently.
What do you say to people saying that men need to get in touch with their emotions?
Well, it's not so much getting in touch with their emotions, it's but being in control of them. That's one of the things that
Oh no, you
I
see, no, no, you ain't gonna do that. You ain't gonna do that.
no,
No.
no, I got you. I got you. I'm not gonna go off the deep end. I promise. I promise. Because being able to control your emotions allows you to be emotional when you need to be, and be able to turn it off when need to turn it off. It because if we sat there and allowed ourselves to stay in that emotion for too long, we men get depressed faster than women do.
Mm-hmm.
I've come to find that a man with his thoughts, because we are always solutionary, if we allow those emotions to take over, we 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 get depressed, and that's not, a depressed man's not a good thing. But I'm very in touch with my emotions overall. I know how to feel them, and something my dad taught me, I learned a lot from my father, is don't stop the emotion, don't stop the feeling. He said, hey, everything has a beginning and an end. Feel the emotions and feelings all the way through to the end, and then move on. And I think that's where men fail at, because we're taught to bottle it up, push it down, don't feel it, and be a man, puff your chest out. And then when you're 40, 50 years old, one little thing hits you and you crumble. And that's what they call a midlife crisis.
And you can crumble on both ends. You could crumble into absolute obscurity, or you can crumble into violence. Um, the reason I asked the question is because, unlike the times of old, and I get we had a different battle back then, but the battle was not against femininity. Okay. And I think that's a harder battle to deal with than even pushing down emotions. Okay. I would much rather, and people might disagree, I would much rather deal with somebody who had to bottle their emotions as a man than to deal with somebody who always let them out. I cannot stand a male that always tries to get into their feelings about stuff. Um, that gets me more angry than bro. So what we're dealing with today is almost like we've gone from um, a one side of masculinity to, I wouldn't even say masculinity, to the mirrored image of femininity and calling it masculinity. Um, I'm not opposed to men understanding what empathy is and what sympathy is. Um, and yes, tears can come from a male, but I don't believe that we should be running the entire gamut of emotions just because we need to let that out. I think society is forcing us to do something that we're not supposed to, because I look at it like if someone breaks into my home and I'm so concerned about my kids getting hurt that I sit there and cry. At that point, all emotion gets shut off. Yes, I know that my kids could possibly get hurt. That is now in the background of my mind. My mind has zero to do with that. That's an afterthought. My number one thought is now what? There's a person in my house that's trying to cause me harm. The logic side of me has to take place and say, yo, this is the plan of action. This is how I isolate the threat. This is how I eliminate the threat. And once the threat's eliminated, then I can go check on my offspring and my wife and see if everything's okay. If I were to even go to the emotion side of it, that's what would happen. Now I can't think. I can't logically get past the problem. I can't address the issue, because if he comes to me now, I'm not looking at what he's doing. I'm still concerned about what's happening over there. And that's what society has done to men, which is why you'll see so many men on the street do nothing when something happens to somebody, because they're frozen between emotions and action. And they were told action is toxic and emotion is what's needed. And they behave, unfortunately. This is not a knock against women. They act like women. You know, it's not your job, you know.
I agree.
It's
I
not
agree.
your job.
Everything you said, I agree with. And I think one of the largest issues we face now in the United States of America is that the people have perpetuated this ideology of be less masculine because it's toxic. And it's so much so that one, men have forgotten how to be men, women have started to become men, and what is happening is men aren't taking action in necessary situations, and you get that whole issue of, well, why didn't you do anything, why didn't you defend her, or something like that when something happens. And it's crazy because when we're expected to act and we don't because they want us to be less toxic, we're looked at as the bad man because you didn't do
Hmm.
anything. Men don't
Hmm.
protect women, and it's just like, overall, I'm going to protect regardless. I don't care whether I'm the bad guy, whether I'm looked at as the enemy. My job is to take care of what I need to take care of. And
Hmm.
I've run into situations when I was younger. I've always had that fight. I fight, flight, freeze are, it's always fight for me. And it's not necessarily aggressiveness, but it's more so, hey, I see something wrong. My job, if I'm the only one around, is to remedy that thing that's wrong.
Hmm.
I've jumped on a guy in a Walmart parking lot before for hitting his wife in the Walmart parking lot. And most people are like, oh, that's toxic. You should have just left it alone. No, I would be toxic if I didn't do anything.
Hmm. Hmm. Um, I see the question floating around as to where society has placed this on men. I only need to point people to sitcoms, shows, um, movies. Um, the effect is not listed in what you would call studies necessarily, although there are those as well. But if one would just observe the transition of how they've portrayed men in all of these sitcoms and shows, you will understand exactly what we're talking about. Gone are the days of men being pictured as defenders and protectors in movies and even shows. They have gone from that to these, I would call them sidekicks. That's what they are. They're like Robin, or better yet, they're the Joker, really. Okay, look at if we were to look at movies that consider man a blundering idiot, or even sitcoms considering fathers a dummy. This is exactly what they've done to manhood. Every time the man comes home, what does a man do? The man does it. He needs to stop doing exactly that. And that's exactly what they've been pushing. They've been pushing men away from being a certain way, calling them a certain thing. And then when men adopt it because they watch what's happening in society, you can't document, no one's going to go document that because it happens subliminally. It is happening up here. People are watching it. So of course there's no recordable data for that. However, there is and are many articles about the thing called toxic masculinity. Now, this is one article I found in Psychology Today. This is how they phrase it. Toxic masculinity is a result of a set of strict rules that prescribe what being a man should be. These toxic man rules include, listen, a man should suffer physical and emotional pain in silence. It's not should. And this is where I tell you that they have tried to place it on people. When you consider toxic masculinity, that you tell us we should, it is a vital thing that man don't put certain things ahead of what their goal and job is, because it does indeed hamper their job. And that's what men have to learn how to navigate. It's like going to work with an injury and you know you have a job to do because your bills depend on it. It's not that you're trying to be toxic by holding on to it. It's your job. You you have to work with pain. If I went to work, injured myself slightly, and I were to take that pain and give it as the excuse to not work, that would be less masculine to me. And it would be true because now I'm making every little thing I feel more important than my job. And I don't mean work job, but my job to protect and provide. But people would not consider it toxic because I'm taking care of self. It's self care. And no, that's not self care because I shouldn't be first. And I think that's where most people don't understand. Men should not be putting themselves first. They put others first. But in doing that, and let me see the best way to phrase this and make sure people understand. I'm not denying the hierarchy that God put in place. In fact, I'm honoring it. But the first shall be last, and the last shall be first. You understand now? So it's I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to do, but I'm still at the head. I'm leading by what you would call example. Number two, they say a man shouldn't seek warmth, comfort, and tenderness. No, we shouldn't be seeking it. It should be offered to us. I mean, what? Okay, if someone does a good job, wouldn't you commend them? so, so why shouldn't we be expectant of comfort, warmth, and tenderness if we are offering protection and provision? A man should only have the emotions of bravery and anger. Any other emotions are weakness, and weakness is unacceptable. Yes, weakness is unacceptable. But it's not that we should only have it. That's not even what men think. This is why they call it toxic, because y'all don't even understand masculinity. Like, have you ever? Okay, you're a man now. Okay, Lumber, you're a man. Have you ever told yourself that emotions are weakness?
Can you say that one more
Do
time?
you do you
I've been
consider
avoiding my dog. My
emotions
dog's been barking.
weaknesses? Do you consider being emotional weak, or just having emotions weak?
No, not at all. Not at
So
all.
so no man thinks that. No, and this is the problem. Everybody is looking at manhood wrong, and they look at masculinity wrong. So if you're looking at it wrong, of course you're going to get the definitions of what it is wrong. The fourth one, they say a man shouldn't depend on anyone. Asking for help is also weak. Now I have heard this over and over. Most men don't ask for help because we think we have a way to figure it out. And we have to run, like you told your kid, the entire gamut of our problem solving before we reach out to somebody else for help. It's just, it's built into manhood to make sure you figure out every nook and cranny. And if you get to the end and you're like, I can't figure this out, okay, I might ask somebody for help. But it's not our go to. We got to figure it out ourselves. We want to get it done first. Are you like that?
Yeah, 100% just like that. My thing is, if I can't figure it out, the likelihood of someone else being able to figure out is just as slim. So I'm going to exhaust every avenue that I possibly have before I reach out, not because I'm stubborn or
Mm-hmm.
I'm prideful or anything like that. It's because, hey, one, it's a learning experience. I don't believe in losing. I only believe in lessons.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a learning experience. I want to learn. And if I fail, that's a lesson learned.
Mm-hmm.
Say, hey, next time this is what I need to do. And it's sometimes I'll reach out immediately. Sometimes I'll reach out immediately for something because I know it's bigger than I am, but I still want to go through the process of trying to figure out a solution before reaching out. One, because it's always in the back of my head, I don't want to burden someone else with what I got.
Thank you.
And even though that can be toxic, that is a toxic trait which all of humanity has, but still I don't want to burden someone, but I also want to figure it out because that's what a man is. At our core, we are solution finders.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and any man that doesn't look for a solution, that's not a man. That's still a boy. I don't care if they're 80 years old.
Right. Their fourth one or fifth one is a man should always want to win, whether in sports, work, relationships, or sex. Um, if you're not trying to win, what's the point? And yes, that is our goal, to try and win. Like when I was growing up, you did not want to be the slowest. You didn't want to get picked last. Okay. You always trying to outdo your friend. Why do you think we had male friends and, as boys? Why do you think we like hanging out with the challenge? We've challenged each other. I remember when I was in karate class, um, the goal of us younger ones was to finally take out sensei. Okay. Sensei might have been the leader and he was teaching us stuff, but the goal is I'm not going to lose to sensei no more. Now, was that toxic? No. Even sensei was like, you know, come on, bring it on. So one day I decided to go and challenge sensei. Now, mind you, this was my ego talking. My sensei knew it was my ego talking, and he was going to end up teaching me a lesson about putting my ego ahead of strategy. Okay. So here I am about to face off against my sensei. And I was watching him and I'm thinking, okay, he does a roundhouse, a reverse roundhouse heel kick. And that leaves that plant leg real vulnerable. My stupidity is that I was 14. He was way older than that. And so um his leg is going to be stronger than mine. Okay. He has years of planting that leg. Okay. So I sweep and my leg just goes boing off of his, and I pop straight up. And he was holding on to that hook while I was sweeping. So he's watching me down there. And as soon as I come up, the heel comes around. Bam! Now, mind you, Sensei did not take it easy on me. He fired that kick like I was a man. All right. And I took that hit. Whap! Whoop, 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 whoop. Bam! I was out. Out. You know what I never did to Sensei again? Tried to sweep. Not until I knew for a fact that my leg could do it. But at the same time, I'm like, but Sensei has years ahead of me. That sweep will never work. So I had to work on something that I have to perfect for myself. I never beat him, by the way, just so people know. I never beat my sensei. I don't think I still can. He's 60 something now, and he still will whoop my behind. I met him the other day, and trust me, he whooped my behind. But I also understand what it taught me is pick your battles. Don't let your ego get you into a position where you're gonna get your behind whoop. Analyze something and measure your strengths against it to make sure that you're not going to step in a situation that you can't step out of. And if you do see an opening, take it. So the problem I think with society is that it's told men not to take that chance. Just accept the fact that you lost. Even if you've never tried it, you lost. You're not going to get there. Don't worry about it. Do you think it's a good thing to tell a young boy to not attempt something and to be afraid of failure?
So no, it's that's probably one of the most detrimental things you can do is tell them not to take the attempt.
Hmm.
Because then not only does doubt set in, fear sets in, and then those two those two twins, because the doubt and fear are twins together. It's like your sensei, and because they've had millennia of working on men and women alike, beating them down, so they built up that plant leg. So you have to take it from a different angle, and I feel most assuredly, because I don't do it with my kids. I tell my kids all the time, hey, if you want to accept failure, go ahead. That's on you, because I'm teaching them and instructing them on how to be young adults, because the world is moving faster than it used to. But I never instill doubt and fear. I always tell them, hey, you can do it. Go for it. Do you want to see me do it first? And then I will enact whatever it is that they're trying to do. And they, well, you're just older and bigger and stronger, or you know more. And so it's like, yeah, I do, but I'm showing you that it can be done because I once was your age. So do it. And I think that's extremely detrimental to their psyche, to their mind, to their heart. Every aspect of the inside of them is detrimental, because a physical bump on the head, like that hook kick that came around and got you to the back of the head, that hurt, but you learned a lesson, and that hurt healed, but that lesson grew you up. So
Hmm.
you went from being a 14-year-old to a 27-year-old real quick, fast, in a hurry, because you learned a valuable lesson. Hey, I can't do this yet, but that doesn't mean I can't do it.
Right. Um, and I know that my sensei, he made sure to push that. Just because you failed at defeating me and you know for a fact you will not defeat me does not stop you from trying to defeat me still. Um, the attempt builds something in men that not attempting because of the lure of failure will not build. And I don't know how exactly to explain that to most people, where I tell them failure is a man's friend, like a man's friend, not people's. Failure to a man is one of the biggest boosts to making them man than anything else. I have learned so much more from failing than I have from success. Um, the success may make me feel good, but failure gives me motivation to try again. I used to be the kind of person that when I failed, I'd fall into, like you said, depression. It'd be instantaneous. I'm worthless. Why can't I ever get this right? And that's how I used to be all the time. And the thing that the problem for me is that I did not have a male or even a man's influence in my life to tell me how to proceed. The last one I moved and he ended up dying. So I did not have a prolonged um, influence. And but this particular brother, um, he was a policeman and a boxer, and he would constantly tell me when I was around him that your measuring of yourself is not in what you accomplished, but how much stuff you didn't accomplish, but tried again. And that was one of his biggest things, because he was one of those guys that, I mean, he was big dude, big 6'4", just massive, massive human being. And he said, I didn't get to this point by taking the pain of working out and saying, oh man, I don't know if I could take that pain again and not go to the gym. He said it comes at a cost, but the cost has to be calculated as okay in order for you to get to the end of your goal. I think society, unfortunately, has been telling men that the cost should be something that you not only put more emphasis on than the end result, but once you experience that first bit of pain, oh, it's a sign that you shouldn't do it. And I watch this in little boys, and I'm guilty of doing it with my boys at one point, where I tell them, well, if it hurts, don't do it. When I should be telling them, if it hurts, try again. You may find a way to not make that particular injury happen a second time, and if it doesn't, then you've accomplished one more route of how to do things. If you were to suggest one thing for a father dealing with a young boy to get him on the pathhood to manhood, what would that be? What would that one piece of advice be?
Well, I'm kind of in that boat right now. My son's
Hmm.
only 10. So there's so many things swirling through my head that would be poignant for them to know.
Hmm.
But in all actuality, it's the best advice I could give is to figure out how to succeed. Don't be afraid of failure, and just keep it moving. One thing my father always said to me, and he said to me the night before he passed away, was it since from the time I could understand the language of English that we speak till the time he passed away, he always would say to me, life is going to go on whether you're in it or not. So choose to be in it.
Mm.
And that has been my motto for living. So find a way to succeed and don't be afraid of failure, because life's going to beat the hell out of you every single day, whether you want it to or not, because that's what life and circumstances do. Find out how to succeed. Find a
Hmm.
way, even if it's scary, find a way. Even if it hurts, find a way. Even if it breaks something, find a way to succeed. And don't be afraid of that failure.
Mm. I look at this manosphere movement and the passport bros movement, and then you have the single moms movement, and then you have the woman is independent movement, and then you have now the man versus bear thing situation. um, for people who think that society isn't trying to formulate and to corral men and women, but we're talking about men, into a bubble, just look at the manosphere movement and how trash that whole concept is and what they're actually telling. Now, if you actually want to point at toxic masculinity, look at the manosphere. And I do include Mr. Samuels in this. For all intents and purposes, while he might be trying to give a portion of manhood back to men, he's giving the wrong type of manhood back to men. Um, because he went at it from a completely dark side where you're all about it, all about you, and that's not manhood at all. In fact, manhood should be about everybody else. And it's not that you put yourself last, but you are fulfilling your role as the protector. Just like a gate doesn't put itself first, it's in front of the city, protecting the people behind it. But when you also look at the independent woman side, they're looking for the effeminate man. They're not looking for the masculine man, because when a masculine man shows up, what do they say? Well, you're not going to control me, and you're not going to tell me what to do. And so you end up being the male. Now, if society had been on track with what manhood, neither one of these foundations would have taken root. But they have taken root at the expense, unfortunately, of manhood. And what happens when manhood's absent? So is womanhood. I'm sorry to tell y'all, but when manhood is gone, you end up with man, but in the woman form, and that's toxic masculinity. It's when a woman tries to be a man. That's what you would call toxic masculinity.
Agreed.
Do you see a way to avoid? Now, remember, we're both raising boys, but we have, I think, unfortunately, we have less impact on them in terms of time, than the world does, and we have to work almost three times as hard in the short time we do have them in front of us to work against what's happening. What has been your biggest challenge in combating what the outside world is telling your son, including mama, versus what you're trying to raise them to be? Because I'll tell you my fight too.
Well, for me is one, as far as the outside world goes, it's trying to combat the worldliness and because I am a man of God, and that's where all of my foundation is, and where I take root and I stem from is combating the worldliness, because my children were homeschooled, and then I put them in a private Christian school, and then they went back to homeschool, and then they finally went to public school because of the change of the economy. I could no longer afford the private school, and I watched an instant change where they came home singing worldly songs that they never heard before, and I asked them, "Do you know what that means?" And so combating the unlearning of what I'm teaching. And the biggest thing I face inside the home that I combat is the kids trying to do what kids do. Well, dad said no, let's go to mom. If mom said no, let's go to dad. And or telling a different story than what actually happened so they can garner sympathy or favor with another parent. So that's the largest thing on the inside. But ultimately, I can handle that with ease. It's what happens outside of my home that's the problem, not what's inside.
Hmm.
Because what's inside is my job to control in every way, shape, and form. What's outside is my job to combat.
Right. And I'm not putting you on blast, babe. I'm not putting you on blast. Just so you know, I know you in the chat. I'm not gonna put you on blast. However, you can admit to something that I'm gonna say. Uh, yeah, my wife is in the chat room, so I'm trying to make sure I tell her something before I say it. But she also knows I have no filter, so it is what it is. I've had to work um, very hard around the concept of letting my boys fail, and sometimes letting them work past places where um, or do things that may seem at the time a little too much. And I'm pretty sure you can admit this, babe, that she has been almost the blockage to them going into another level of manhood, simply by the nature that she possesses of nurturing and the caring, and doesn't want the damage to happen. And I think, unfortunately, we have gotten to the place where when a man is trying to raise a male into a man, the the lessons we have to teach them may seem damaging, may seem very painful, but they're needed. And it's almost very difficult for you to have a your wife or your significant other relinquish their role in certain areas in growing these men long enough for you to make a lesson take root. Now, I'm not saying that she's not miles ahead better than what we've been when we were first together, but um, it's still there with our youngest. Um, he's still, and I look, I don't mind him being coddled at 8 years old. He's 8. He loves his mama. He loves his dad, but he loves his mama. Again, I'm not opposed to him being. However, there are instances where I try to make sure that he understands failure. My oldest is helping with that now too, where he has him doing certain exercises, and when he's trying to quit, my oldest will push him past that point of failure into this area where he's like wanting to cry and wanting to cry. It's like, no, no, don't cry. We ain't doing the crying thing here. You're gonna get past this. You're just trying to find it. And that's how he talks to him. But there will be instances where I'll watch my wife's face and and it's this, why are you talking to my baby like that kind of thing? And in my head, I'm thinking, well, that's what he needs. He kind of needs that shut it down nonsense, because what will end up happening, I know this for a fact because it did with me, that is a very powerful thing. Emotions and crying can actually supersede a whole lot of your logic and and you become now this character that at the first sign of pain, tears, and in the first sign of trouble, tears. And when you don't learn to shut that off, it becomes who you are, and then you quit. And I think as men, we have to work past that, even if it does mean what we would call bottling up. We're not bottling up, we're compartmentalizing. This is more important than what I'm feeling right now. How do you think people in football feel when you and I both play football? By the third quarter, you are gassed. Like you think to yourself, I got a whole quarter left. Oh, and I still got to be running. So you're there, and now your chest starts to hurt, your legs starting to cramp. And the first thing you think, okay, I can take a timeout. No, you can go to the sideline, drink some Gatorade, eat a banana, something to get your muscles back up and get back out there. If you don't learn these small lessons as men growing up, as boys growing up, when you become older, I can't call you a man at that. When you get older, quitting is cake. Quitting is like what you do. It's just who you become. Quitting is not manly. I I don't know how else to say this. It's just not. Um, Even when it comes to life, suicide, not manly. If you're a male, and I can attest to that, I was not manly taking that way out. But, and I think unfortunately, males today are more female in their behavior. And again, it's not a bad thing if it's a female doing it, but when a man's trying to be female, no,
Well,
no.
here's the thing. Here's the thing. I think the largest issue we face in the Western society is, and I want to be careful how I say this because I don't want to just throw some malarkey out there, but is that they push us to confide in the opposite sex, and the opposite sex can only give you a purview of the opposite sex's experience, and
Hmm.
and no matter how similar the experiences are that male might have to a female or a female to a male, your how you perceive it is still going to be different, because when you go male to male, it's different. When you go female to female, it's different. But I'm reminded of this story I heard where this dog married a duck or a goose, and no, a dog married another dog, and the dog went to go outside to do his business, and a goose walked up into his yard. So the dog started doing what the dog normally did and sniffed the goose's butt to that's how dogs greet each other. And the goose nipped at the dog, so the dog bit the goose. And so the dog's wife was like, "You need to go see the therapist." So the dog goes to this therapist, and the therapist is another bird. And the bird's like, "Well, you need to do this, 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 and this." And the dog's like, "Wait, let me try to explain to you why I did what I did." And the other bird's like, "No, no, no, I'm the therapist. I know more." So the dog's like, "No, I'm going to go to another therapist." So this dog goes to a therapist that's a dog, and he starts explaining, "Hey, I was outside doing my business, and this goose walked up, and the dog, before he even finished, the other dog says, 'You bit him, didn't you?'" He said, "Yeah, how did you know?" And it's because you have to oftentimes talk to someone that is like you, or older, preferably, that's like you, to have an understanding. And the goose ended up being the dog's adopted parents. That's why
Hmm.
he didn't recognize who they were. But at the same time, if you have a woman talking to a man, you're only going to get a man's perspective. If you have a man talking to a woman, you're only going to get a woman's perspective. But if men talk to men and women talk to women, you start to reduce a lot of the problems. But America, especially, has painted this ideology of, "Oh, I just don't get along with other women. Women are toxic. Women are drama. So women don't want to talk to other women. They want to go to a man." And a man's like, if a man's got more girlfriends than he does guy friends, that's a problem. For
Yes.
one, whether he's straight or not, that's a problem. But I have gotten where I am in life now because I always go to someone older than me, because I want your wisdom. I
Hmm.
want your experience so I can apply it like armor to myself when I go through life. I know how to handle that situation. Even though I might do it the way I think it would work best, I still have that understanding of, if this person throws this spinning kick, I need to go low and sweep, but I need to be knowledgeable that I might not sweep his leg out from under him.
Yeah.
But that I can only get that from someone else's experience that's been where I am trying to get.
Right. And you mentioned something, because it's so ironic as you say that. So me growing up without that man influence in my life, I did eventually have a whole lot of female friends. Now, just that's what they were, friends, but they weren't even like close friends. That was just a group I gravitated to because I could not identify with the boys. They were. rambunctious, loud, crazy, all that stuff. And so I was not me. I was not outgoing because I was never brought up around cars. I wasn't brought, I mean, I played outside with my nephew, but that was about the extent of it. So as a kid, I was around older people with my mom, and it was older women that I was around. And started to notice that a lot of the boys who had their father around were, the best way I could describe it was mentally off. They were, in my book, they were mentally off. And it wasn't until I hit my late teens that I started to notice some things about myself, that I was gravitating towards behaving and having a lot of emotional content that was like contradictory to how I wanted to live. The bad thing is that I did not implement God's way of doing it. And I went to the extreme opposite end of life. So I went from being docile and home broken and all that stuff to being completely, after, I hit my late 20s, early 30s, to being a completely off the hook, like, you probably were, um, overly, overly masculine to try and compensate for the years of not being so. And it wasn't until my later years that I realized that the blend of the two, I went through both. Um, the value that I got from seeing how ineffective femininity is for a man, and the ineffectiveness of overly adjusting for that, there is a middle ground. And I finally found that middle ground. But ironically, I'm not actually at middle. I'm more towards the aggression side than I am to the docile side. And that's the perfect location. Not that I can't get there, but that's not my home. I'm supposed to be in the middle of aggression and calm, so that any moment, aggression's right around the corner, I can reach it because they'll need it, or I can be docile. Um,
It's like
when you,
what Jordan Peterson said. He says, uh, being a man is having a monster inside of you,
mhm,
and knowing how to control that monster, but still being that monster. And
right,
I think that's the best way to look at it for myself, especially because I'm more like you as well. Is that I it, I'm very calm, cool, and collected, but that mask can be pulled off very
quick,
quickly
fast,
when
quick,
I'm
fast.
aggressed upon.
Yeah, quick, fast. I consider myself a splice between Batman and Hulk. All right, and this, like, not Superman. I'm not Superman. I'm definitely a blend between Batman and Hulk, and this is the blend I see. I will be methodical in destroying you. Look, I will research, and that's the Batman side of me. However, if somehow you lose your mind and decide to walk off and punch Batman, yeah, yeah, Hulk gonna show up. And then you won't, like, now you're gonna beg for Batman to show back up, but Batman's gone, long gone. Hulk's here now, and Hulk ain't going nowhere. And then you're gonna think, oh, you're so angry. Like, yeah, no, no, really? You think? Y'all might think it's violent, but it's not. I gave you Batman. You didn't want Batman. You smack Batman. Now Batman say, you know what, Bruce, can you both Bruces, by the way. I find that kind of weird. This is the crazy part of it, is that I'm confused as to how the world could think that you need the protector, but you want to weaken the protector and expect the maximum out of the protector. I don't see how that even remotely makes sense to
Well,
the world.
The Bible gives us the perfect example of this, uh, where Samson's laying his head in the lap of Delilah,
Hmm.
and she's like, where's your strength come from? And you know, the most potent time to harm a man is in the moment of throes of intimacy when he's finishing, because it's when it's his weakest point. And that's also at that time, that moment after that is where he's most receptive to giving out information. And I believe that's how she took his power away. And Delilah represents, and those that were backing her represents the society, because they don't want the strong man, because the Bible says, when you go to the house and you
Of a
see
strong
that the
man.
strong man is there, you get out of there. You
Yeah.
don't stay, because you need the strong man to be removed so that you can go in and do what you need to do. And Samson was the strong man, but once he gave up his secret to his strength, it's now been exploited all over the Western world. And I keep saying, referring to the Western world, because Very few places in the world are like this. It's America is a beacon that is shining bright, and the rest of the world slowly starting to kowtow to that American ideology. But at the same time, I want to stay strong no matter what. This is why people are like, oh, you're abrasive. I'm not. I'm very reasonable and logical and easy to talk to, but I don't deal with BS.
Yeah, I
You're
don't
not
deal
going to
with
get me
stupid.
to,
Yeah.
oh, it's okay. What you said is okay. No, what you said was wrong.
And I think that's where it's lost. We find, look, we find this on people who have been around my platforms a lot understand this, especially when you look at places like Too Strong. I'll give you a prime example. And those of you in the audience that have witnessed this, y'all can tell me if I'm wrong. And even if just watching this platform, we will start a topic and people in the audience will be going ham on us, saying, and I mean, they say every manner of insultive and angering statements. We will watch them and we will let them slide. Okay. But then they'll take the quiet and the not addressing it and take it to another level. And then they'll be like trying to really push to get a response. Now, remember, they're doing this to get a response, but they're doing it to get a certain type of response that they think we would give. And then we still let it continue. And then they go one more step. And then when we've both had enough and we address them in the same manner that they addressed us, we're the bad guys. You're toxic. Why are you being like that? Why you got to be so mean? Why are you all so angry? I'm like, oh, just hold on. You're gonna have that same energy when you walk into the woods and you see a bear sleeping and you go poke, 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 and the bear look back at you like, for real? And he go back to sleep and you go poke, and he ain't responding. You go get a sharper stick, poke, and you draw some blood, and the light, like, man, like, okay, one more poke. He's the bad guy.
Well, that's we see that on a regular basis on the TikTok platform, where where we calm, cool, and collected. We keep our cool. We don't say nothing. We let the insults and the jabs and stuff slide, and then they finally say something that's so off the wall. We're like, "Are you stupid? Oh, why are you calling me out of my name? Well, are you upset that I called you stupid when you called me Uncle Tom, Moon Cricket, Sambo? Like, you've been doing this the whole time, but I finally give you what you've been asking for. Now you're clutching your pearls. Nah, the pearls got ripped off a long time ago when you said what you just said, and I took all those bumps on the head.
Exactly. And I saw this in prime time just recently when I was doing my other podcast. And Nitty can attest to this. It was while he was on, and he dipped out because I went this far. But I went an hour absorbing a bunch of hits in the comment section. And I took. And then I decided to pull out my Captain America vibranium shield. And I had Thor come down and smack the shield, and then it blew everything out the way. And then I was the bad guy for saying what I said. But I'm thinking to myself, but the whole hour plus, I was called every name under the sun, and nobody knew me. But the instant I struck back in the exact same manner after enduring, it was insane to me. But it's not that it stopped me. I mean, I don't let that stop me. I still go off. It's not like I care about their feelings. I'm still going to say what I say. But I find it weird that people have this idea that now you're toxic. Now you're overly aggressive. Now you're showing your anger. Why are you so angry? And I'm like, if that's how you view it, you have the right to view me as angry. However, in my world, what I consider that is justice. Okay, that is justice. It'd be no different, like I told you, with the bear. You poke, 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 you poke, you poke the bear, and the bear slash your face off. You can't get mad at the bear. He was just chilling out. He wasn't messing with you. The bear was just trying to enjoy his hibernation, and you go on and decide to, oh, you look so cute laying there. I wonder if you go. No, men are bears. Men are bears. And I will, this is the argument I will tell people if you want to come with this man versus bear thing. If your women say that they'll pick a bear in the woods, men are supposed to be bears. The difference is we have more control than a bear. Men, not boys, not males, men have more control than bears. But do not get it twisted and think that somehow a man will not rip you to shreds in a heartbeat, because we're very capable of doing that, both verbally and physically. There is nothing, there's a very fine line between us snapping and becoming a bear and us manimal is what I would we will go
Yes.
manimal in a heartbeat,
Yes.
but we don't. But we don't. But we're very capable of doing so. The same way people expect. What aggravates Hulk, right? You keep poking, 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 but sometimes you want Hulk to show up, and you'll be like, well, it's not time, but we need Hulk right now. I get it, but then people,
Desperately.
yeah, people
Desperately.
don't like Hulk. Well, that doesn't matter. People don't like Hulk. We need him. Sorry.
Desperately. We're in bad shape. Overall, we're in bad shape. And the thing is, it, I'm tired of personally, as a man, being victimized
Hmm.
by someone that's not really a victim. That those people are the predatory individuals, but they present as prey.
Hmm.
The sheep's are or the wolf is wearing sheep's clothing, acting like a sheep when I act like a bear, but really it's a wolf. And then it's very difficult to uncover that. So when you do say certain things or act a certain way, they magnify that and spotlight that behavior, but you didn't record the other 99 minutes of what went down. So you're only going to blast people in the face with, see, this is how he is. And it's like, no, that's not how I am. You just portrayed this ideology of being the victim when in all actuality you were the one that was the problem the whole time. And I
Right.
just happened to
Right.
be a bigger, badder retort than yours, and it's always going to be that way. I'm always going to go above and beyond in my response once you get me to that place, because I want to stifle out any attempt again to come back at me like that.
Hmm.
So I snuff it out completely.
Do you think that your kid's only 10 now? Um, what will you think would be the hardest part of his life when trying to find a mate?
If I let him do it, trying to figure out if trying to figure out if it's an actual woman. If I let him do it,
Oh, you had to mention that, huh?
well, hey, it used to be before I would have to just tell them, watch out for the gold diggers, watch out for the man beaters, because those exist. But now I got to tell them to watch out the ones that used to be the man, and I despise that I even have to espouse to that. My kids had their first run in with that um, at a store, and they clearly could tell it wasn't what it was trying to portray to be. And my son, I had to have a 2 hour conversation with my son because he just didn't understand, and I had to put it he was 8 at the time. He's now 10. I had to explain it to him in a manner that one an 8 year old at the time could understand, but I also had to do it biblically and in love, because I have no hatred towards those people, but I need him to grow up and know not to have hatred towards them, but also to know that that ain't the move. That ain't
Right.
okay. So that's my biggest worry is my son falling in love with someone that ain't who they say they are.
Um, we're both on TikTok, and as much as people want to deny it, TikTok is an influential platform. I'm not saying a good influence, but it is an influential platform, and there are tons of things on TikTok that alter the mind, alter the view and can change people just by viewing. One of the biggest things we've noticed, and I'm sure you have to on TikTok that we've noticed, you can make content calling for the death, calling for the eradication, calling for the removal of men off the face of the earth to the tunes of millions of views. And if a man gets on screen and says that men are supposed to prioritize themselves, it will get taken down, which is why I tell you that the tangible documentation of the attack on men is not there. But if you look, you will see what the far reaching effects are. That there are now, the move is to remove men from society as a whole because they don't need them, to the point where there is now a growing amount of content stating by women that a woman pregnant with a male child should seek to make sure that she aborts that child before it's born to limit the amount of men in the world. Now, if women understood what a man was, I don't think they would have that viewpoint. But unfortunately, the cross of a male and a man has gotten so bad that they will affiliate the very worst of males with manhood, and they no longer want it around. But that is by design by the people who hate manhood, including and are not limited to some males. The combat of that is very difficult. It's very hard to fight it because you don't have the traction to do so. And the only place we can do it is with our own boys and at least save our generation. And I don't know how we're going to, what would your suggestion be to reach people who aren't our sons?
You said my suggestion to reach people that aren't our what?
Aren't your son?
I feel like this is just like the battle of trying to teach people about their rights. It's no different. It's for me. I say if you are a real man, get out in your community. Uh Go coach baseball. Go coach football. Go coach basketball. Whatever sport that allows you to be around youth, male youth, so that you can teach them and give them little quips and little quotes and stuff like that that that'll stick with them. And you can do that by doing a drill, a specific drill, whatever sport you're in, and say that quote. And every time you do that drill, you say that quote, because now you're putting action behind those words. And if they're experiencing something whilst you're saying that, it sticks a little bit more. For me, I can tell you quotes that my coaches, my father, and influential individuals, males, have told me over my lifetime because they said it whilst I was doing something, not just sitting me down, looking at me and talking to me or talking at me. They did it while I was doing something, so it stuck. I don't see any other avenue that wouldn't get us in a lot of trouble otherwise, besides just getting in your community and doing community outreach.
I'm trying to find that video of the lady that says it because people may not believe. You won't believe it until you see it. Because when I saw it and heard it, I was literally shocked. Um, she did indeed say, "If I ever get pregnant and I find out it's a boy, um, there it is." All right, let me see if this is right. Here's one. All right, I'm going to share this with people because I need you to understand what's going around in the world today that will eventually affect not just women, but the next generation of men. What you gonna do? What you gonna do? What you gonna do? What you gonna do? If I get pregnant and it's not a girl, I'm having an abortion. Now, listen to the far reaching statement that that's actually making. You were fine enough to open your whore legs for a male to plant seed, but for some reason, if the child has a then it's a problem. I know what the echo is. It's Lumberjack's fault, not mine. That's on Lumberjack's end because it's coming from his speaker, not from headphones. So, do you have headphones in? Well, I don't know where the echo is coming from. It's not on me. I don't know where you all get an echo from. Let me see if I can hear it on my live. I'm listening to it. I'm gonna test it. Let me know if y'all have the echo. Let me know if you have the echo now. Any echo now? Any echo now? Any echo now? I muted him. I don't want you all getting an echo. I unmuted him now. But I think the majority of the problems we're facing here is that young girls are going to watch that and think that having a boy is bad. There must be something wrong. There has to be something wrong with men, but you still lay with a dude to have the baby, and you're more than willing to seduce men and have them in your bed and go on these websites and have men, but you're not willing to have them birthed. It tells me something, but the majority, oddly enough, the majority of men that turn out to be the kinds of men that you don't like are raised by you. They don't want to admit this fact, but if you have a man raised by a man, he does not turn out to be that way. If you have a um, boy raised by a girl, the odds of them having to be a very violent and wicked person are exponentially higher. But the going rate is that men are bad, so kill them before they even get started. I think that would be the hardest thing for me to have to face with my boys is, like you said, though, finding somebody that is a liar to them about who they really are, which is why it's so vital to be really intentional about looking at someone's spiritual life before you make that decision. Um,
Well, you shall know them by their fruit, is what the word
right,
says.
right. And if the fruit's rotten, then probably don't eat it because it has maggots in it. And that's why a lot of these maggots end up killing the fruit. Uh, so I have a. I'm glad we have the discussion um, because I want to take it to one last place here, and that is the mental state of men. Is the last one I want to harp on. I'll give you my example. I do not have a large circle, and I've told people this over and over. I do not have a large circle of people I confide in. I keep a lot of the things that I have to myself. Like you said earlier, if I can't solve it, ain't nobody else gonna solve it. I'll keep it until I can solve it. If it does require somebody else, maybe, but I probably won't reach out to people. I just don't. And it's not that I don't trust people. I just analyze things to the point where if I ain't gonna solve it, what they gonna do? I'm just venting for the sake of venting. I'm just not gonna do that. Um, but with my mental health, it's not in the place of where I used to be, where I hold on to it and it becomes a place where I ruminate over it so much that it becomes all I obsess about and eventually start hating myself for. I'm no longer there. But I think many men internalize stuff and they go back to it over and over in their quiet time without trying to find the solve. And then because they've been told no one wants to hear, they internalize and no one wants to hear, and it applies to themselves. Even I don't want to hear my own problems, but you keep repeating the problem because the problem is talking to you to solve it. The man side of your head is trying to tell you this is coming back up because you need to address it. Meanwhile, you are told not to, and now you have a conflict of interest, and what happens is depression. And you start trying to end yourself because there's a fight going on that you're refusing to apply the man side of you, which is the solve, to fix it. Do you find that to be true?
100%. Yeah, yeah. It in every way, shape, and form. It's sad because it's like trying to look left and right at the same time, and that's we're not a chameleon. That's the only animal I've ever seen that can do that. Look in both directions because its eyes can move, but that's not what we are. We're men. We're humans. Uh, we have great abilities, great capacity for gaining more abilities, but being told to do something, but then told not to do something, but know that our every fiber of our being is saying solve this, but then demonized for trying to solve it. It's crazy to me. But for me, ultimately responding to what you said earlier, a lot of men. can't find solutions because they don't know the right question to ask.
Right.
And the question itself is 50% of the
So,
solution.
hmm
Yeah, you can't solve a problem without a question.
um, okay. So I'm gonna challenge you to ask hubby something. I'll put you on the spot. I'm gonna put you on the spot, Linda. I'm gonna put you on the spot. This is what you ask him. Okay, listen carefully. Are there problems that you have not addressed with me, but you've solved them without me knowing? Just ask him that. Are there problems that you have to do with me, but you've solved them without even telling me? And I'm betting you money, there's a majority of problems that he's just solved without telling you. You know why? Because that's what we do. It's not that we're trying to demonize ourselves, but it is what we do. There's a problem. Dang it, solve it. It it needs to be addressed. Fix it. And I think when we apply that, unfortunately, to our outside situations, we get villainized. And I went through that firsthand recently within this year, where somebody brought an issue to me. Mind you, I was the perpetrator in their book of this issue. My solve was fine. I won't do that anymore, and I will never do that particular act with you anymore. That will be done. Problem in my world, problem solved, right? Because you didn't like that action, so I'm not going to do the action anymore. And in my head, I'm thinking, okay, simple enough, done. The response was, you don't get to decide that without me okaying it. But I'm like, but you brought to me a problem. And the problem was pretty egregious in your book. And so in my world, if the problem is no longer there, the problem is solved. I would think if the action goes away, because I see the action as bad to you, and I admit, okay, it's bad. To you, it's bad. It may not be to me, but to you it is, and I stop doing it. How is that not a solve? But their solve was to stop talking completely. Not to stop talking like a certain way, just remove the friendship all the way. And that was their fix. And in my head, I'm thinking, now, if I had gone ahead and implemented that fix, it would still have been a problem for them. Mind you, it's a female. That would have been a problem too. Why? Because a lot of society is trying to make men respond instead of act. They want us to respond, always respond, and
Well,
respond the way they want us to respond. It's no longer how a man responds, it's how I want you to respond. That's how you should respond.
the way my pastor puts it is um, reactions versus response. Response is thought out. Reaction is it just is. Like if someone
Emotional.
flashes their hand in their face, you blink because that's a reaction. That's something that doesn't take thought. A response takes thought. And it's crazy you say that, and this is no shade to anybody in your comments, but a woman's solution often requires a man to do something that is not manly. Whereas a man says, like you, perfect example, because one thing I'm working on with myself is I'm working on no longer apologizing, no longer saying I'm sorry. And most people are like, that's horrible, that's rude, that's terrible. No, 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 no. Because I can apologize and then go do the same thing again. I can say I'm sorry and then go do the same thing again. My solution is now you bring me a problem that's concerning myself. I'm going to look you in your eyes and say, hey, yeah, that's something I need to work on. I will do better next time at not doing that. Or I will do better next time at recognizing this before I open my mouth and saying that. Is that something that we can agree upon and move forward from? If they say yes, problem's over. Don't keep trying to make it out to be something that it's not. Don't try to make me emotional. Don't try to make me feel bad for myself or bad for you in a way that I have to feel like I need to grovel or anything like that. The problem's done because the next time that issue comes up,
I know what to
or
do.
right before that potential issue comes up, I'm going to say, hey, we had a talk about this. I need not to do that. And if it might take me one or two, maybe three times before it sticks with me, because that's called repetition. But know that I am working on that. And in my working on it, don't keep reminding me of what I used to do, because that's not I'm not who I was last week. I'm not who I was a month ago. I'm not who I was last year. I'm a different person. And I feel that if many men, because not all men will do, and many women would get that, 99% of your problems as relationships, friendships, workships would go away, because there's no need to apologize, because I hate hearing I'm sorry, because
Hmm.
I hear it 1,000 times. And it's also, you are saying, you're stating that I heard what you said, and here's what I'm going to do in response to what you said, and how to better myself.
I, but that was, again, that's never hardly the solution anymore. Addressing the problem is always now frowned upon because it's too direct. And this is what the other thing too that Corey and I have realized. It actually can be reflected in how we answer questions. Like someone will ask me a question and it's there's the answer. Bam. All right. But no, you asked me a question, right? Yeah. I gave you my answer. Why do you have that answer? Well, the reason I gave you that answer because that's what I believe. That's too direct. For a lot of people, that's you got to give me a breakdown. And no, I don't. Because in my world, you ask me a question, and in my world, I've already broken it down for myself because you're asking me for my answer. You're not asking me to make your answer my answer. This is my answer. And you don't need to know the gymnastics I went through to get to that answer. Just know this is my answer. And if you don't like the answer, then go ask somebody else that will give you the answer that you like, but it ain't gonna be me. I think I think people just get mad because you don't answer the question the way they want you to answer a question, but it's not for you to decide. Now, if it is a question of if I offended you, don't bring me something that offends you, and then when I tell you I won't offend you anymore, you want even more a reason as to why I was offending you of the first time because I didn't think it was an offensive thing. Is that difficult? I didn't see it as offensive, but you did, and I told you ain't happening no more. There, problem solved. Well, it ain't really stuff we need to talk about. What do we need to talk about? You said stop. I said okay. Like, how is that? How is that bad? Men get villainized for solving. They get villainized for not solving, and this is where a lot of men will fall out of the bracket of being men and resort to being boys or resort to being males and get angry and they commit suicide. They commit violent acts and they act out. A real man will work on always implementing something called control. And that even means to the point, and I don't mean not being vehement. Don't get it twisted. We're talking about emotional control, where we start to act and behave irrationally. Ration and rationality can actually make you act very violently. FYI, like walking in behind my daughter in a female's restroom, and you're a male. Rationality calls me to rip your head off. Like that's rational to me. I'm just saying that's not irrational. So y'all can get mad at that, but it's rational for me to yank you by the back of your head. And if something comes off, it comes off. I'm not. To me, that's rational. I'm like I said, Hulk. So, do you have a podcast?
No, look, I tried to start one. I don't have one. I'm slowly trying to pull a bunch of irons out of the fire so I can focus on things that I really want to focus on. I think after this summer I should be able to do that. Um, but I might work on starting a podcast. I might have to pick your brain on how to go about it. I have all the equipment for one, but I need some wisdom.
I can afford you that. I don't have a whole lot of it, but I can afford you what I got. Um, I kind of fell into this the way by not I wouldn't say by accident. I had to eventually become a thing, but it wasn't by force. You have a natural ability for it. I can tell you that much. You have a presence for the podcasting thing, and you have a wealth of information for the podcasting because you've lived in a very short period of time a lot of life. What you'll end up finding though is that and I'll tell you right now, the biggest issue, consistency with most people. They don't want to be consistent enough, and they're not willing to do things on the fly, on the go, right away. Corey and I have a very different way of approaching life, and we both had this even with work. So I can tell you have the same, and this is how we operate. If my boss calls me and says, yo, we need something done, but it's an hour away and we need somebody out there right away, and I'm not doing anything, I'm going. And people will look at me like, well, you got to pay you extra. Look, I don't care about the extra stuff. I got presented with a problem. I'm available to fix the problem. I know I'm going to get paid. I'm not worried about that. But the influence that I'm going to gain from doing something on the fly will put me in a better position to make money later. That's how I view it. And so when we have a topic pop up, Corey will call me, hey, you available? Whatever I'm doing, it stops. It stopped. Like, yeah, I'm ready now. What we doing? Corey knows this. He can call me tomorrow. If I'm in pain, he can call me tomorrow. I'll be like, all right, I'll be downstairs to record in 5 minutes. I'm ready. The only way that won't happen is if I'm not near my house and I'm like 5 hours away. It'll take me 5 hours, but I'm going to get the 5 hours up. I'm there. This is part of podcasting that you have to have an availability to. If you're going to do it, even if you only do it once a week, make sure that it's consistently once a week. But you being a man, I think you can understand something about consistency and the value of consistency. Even if it's not often, it's consistently not often. That makes sense. You already have the info, you have the presence, you have the equipment. It's just a matter of doing it and not quitting on it. My last question to you. Which is more important for you right now? Finding a mate or living the rest of your life in servitude to God?
100% living the rest of my life in servitude to God
Dang
in
it.
every way, shape, and form.
Dang it.
It whether I have had future whatever life circumstances change for me at this present moment, God's got to be number one, because he was there before I became a man. He was there while I am a man. He was there before the wife. He was there with the wife. He will be there after the wife. So I have to live in servitude to him, because in him I live, in him I breathe, in him I do. Without him I do anything, and none of that, because my wife don't help me breathe. My wife don't help me live. And when I say live, I mean life, actual
Yeah, I know
physical
exactly what
presence
you
here.
mean. Yeah.
She don't help me do any of those things, and I think that's one of the issues, as not to deviate from the question, but the issues that most people have in relationships in general is they forget that they were there before everything else. They were there before the house. They were there before the kids. They were there before the school. They are there before the games and stuff like that, and they stopped putting each other first. So in that, I need to consistently and always put God before everything. And there's a time and a place where God won't be the first thing, because he calls us to be the head of the household. That's our chief job as men before anything else. But he has to be at the center of everything. So no, my servitude to God is more important than anything.
But even in him calling you and putting you at that helm, that's putting him first, because you're putting his job first. Like I said, with the calling me on a weekend and say I need to get out here, I'm putting my job above all else. But I'm also realizing that my job is providing for the for the home. So it's a not a catch-22. It's a double-edged sword that works both going and coming. People are asking for the Discord address. What is it for the Bible study?
Oh my. um I don't have, actually, hold on. Will it let me throw it in the chat here?
Or you can text it to me, either one. Yeah, but
Yeah,
if you're in
I'll
the
do
if you're
both.
in the chat, do it there. Yeah.
I'll do both for you, just in case people can't get a hold of it. Let me go here, create, invite, copy link, and we're going to make this one last forever. Save, copy, and I'll text it to you as well as put it in the chat. But yeah, I have Bible study every Sunday, and we've been doing this a small group every Sunday since November, middle of November, and I have had people be faithful to it, and I benefit more from that Bible study than they do in every way, shape, and form, because it causes me to have to remain sharp, like you said, consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes I wanna get lazy and be dull, but I'm not allowed to because there are a group of people depending on me being there. So whether I'm sick, I'm there. If I have something important to do, like you said, I'll put that thing down unless it's my kids or something like that. Outside of the things that need to come first, that's something I will stay consistent to every Sunday.
Right, right. I've been thinking about doing one every week, every other weekend, every other Sunday. Kind of like that, but on this platform here. That
You
might
you
be fun
should you
every
should
other week. So we'll see
you
how.
should.
They said they want it, but I haven't started it yet. But and I'll explain why people I haven't started yet. But it will be. I think this Sunday is one. I'm not. I can't remember. I think this Sunday is one. But in either case, um, did you drop the link in the chat already? I don't see it.
Yeah, I did. It's already passed up,
Okay.
but
Okay.
I'll text it to you as well.
Yeah, yeah, and that way I can set up a what you call it, um community link on my page for them, so you can do that.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, like I said, people, this was a conversation we all needed to have simply because men are getting thrown by the wayside, and the idea of manhood is being actually shat upon. So we want to be able to leave a spot open for the discussion, especially things like yeah, I don't think it posted. If you want to send it to me real quick,
All right. Hold on 1 second.
it might be YouTube trying to stop links. Yeah, he'd have to end up leaving and coming back. So don't, if that's why you saw him dip. He's not gone. He's probably trying to get the link sent. Um, yeah, society isn't leaving us very many options to be what we're supposed to be, and we have to combat it somehow, some way. So we're going to start doing that more often. But also, it's going to be addressed at the seminar this year too, here that we're having for the family, and we're going to talk more directly to men in a more um, direct fashion. Going to be talking to men about a lot of things that the church isn't willing to talk to men about. Yeah. So if you are out there and you're coming to the event in July, the family event, and your hubby is unaware of what's going to be taking place, please make them aware that we will be discussing things that the church does not want to touch. And that includes everything up to intimacy, just so we're aware. We're going to be talking about all of it because it's essential. It is not something that we should be running from. It is not something that we should be afraid of. I get that certain settings are for it, but the church is not addressing it at all. But the world sure is. The world is definitely addressing that issue, unfortunately, and they're winning the battle with our kids and our boys. So hopefully he'll pop back in before he said, there he is. There he be. Where that? Where that?
I'm sorry about that. I totally did. I hit the wrong thing.
Oh,
Uh, Here it is. I just texted it to you.
got it. Okay. Copy
And that
that.
should never expire. But if it does, just let me know.
Let me do this right now before my brain kicks in and I forget. And boom. All right, here we are. All right, there you go, guys. There is the link in the chat right there. I can hear myself now too. That's weird. So anyway, thank you for showing up, man. And we need to do this again. And this time we'll have a discussion on something more I don't know, universal. We'll have to pick a good topic. Might be a biblical topic or something.
I'm here
Or
for
big,
whatever, man.
yeah,
I'm
there you go.
versatile.
Yeah, hey, oh, trust me, we know that. It won't be about chopping trees, though. I don't. I'm not going to talk to you about chopping trees, and I'm not going to do a live with you while you're chopping trees. It's just not going to happen. But if you do kick your podcast off, just let us know. We'll get it.
I will.
We'll
I
get your
will.
subs up to 1,000 so you can go live real quick and get some money out of that too.
I will. Thank
That's
you.
the
I
cool way.
appreciate that.
But anyway, guys, don't forget the Savage Patriots are on today at 6:30, and we'll be doing a part two of the exposing the how should I best phrase this? The paid operatives on TikTok for the DNC. Um, and if you have not or were not privy to the conversation last night with Crystal, go back and watch that. And then Saturday, the Rumble event, of course. And then Sunday night, if I do it, if I'm feeling up to it, I'll do the Sunday night Bible study this Sunday. So y'all make sure y'all check all those out. Um, do you want anything else to drop? Any other information? Your TikTok account? Anything?
No, everything's the same. You can find me. My handle is pretty much the same or shortened version of it on all social media. I'm most I post most on TikTok. Secondary to that would be Instagram, then Clapper, then YouTube. I really gotta work on YouTube. YouTube's
Up
a
your
hard
game.
animal to beat.
It is, but like I said, the only reason it's hard to beat is because people aren't consistent, and you have to have something worth watching on YouTube. You see, unlike TikTok where it's scroll, 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 scroll. It's more intentional. People are intentional of watching YouTube, and if your content's not worthy of watching, they're not going to watch it. And it's a good gauge to see if you're getting your audience on TikTok because of stupidity, and you can't translate it. The reason most of the time it doesn't translate to YouTube is because your content isn't worth it. People just not in. They can't stand you for more than a minute, is what that means. And so that's usually the tell all. And we'll find out about that today. By the way, you'll see exactly what we mean when we expose these shills for their stupidity. But again, thank you, Freddie, for showing up today.
Yeah,
Don't.
thank you,
I will
Marlon. I
be hitting you
appreciate you,
back up.
brother.
I will be hitting you back up for a part two.
Yes,
we
sir.
may have to try and find a way to get Mike on and have a round table about manhood.
Hey, we can definitely do that.
I
We can
think it'd be
definitely
a
put that
great
together.
thing to have a round table about manhood because we don't get talked about in the correct way, the true way enough on platforms. So I think that'd be good.
Yeah.
For the rest of y'all, again, don't forget 6:30 and tomorrow as well at 6 p.m. So 6 p.m. on Saturday for the Rumble event, 6:30 today for Savage Patriots. And we'll catch you then. Wisdom calls to you from the streets, so please, please, please find wisdom. Peace.
Hold tight the dreams, for if dreams die, rely on yourself.